Hello, YouTube. Another quick video with some beekeeping tips. This one is going to be about a nighttime swarm that I caught. Actually, the swarm it wasn't nighttime, it was right before dark, and caught me totally off guard, was totally unprepared. So I hurriedly did catch this swarm. However, I did make some mistakes along the way. So I would like to use this video as an opportunity to point out some of the mistakes that I made so that maybe if you have an opportunity like this in the future, you won't make them as well. So let me show you the video, and I'll tell you, four main mistakes I made, and you can do with it what you will. Okay, so here was the swarm. My daughter spotted it on a Friday night after I had done my Bible study and called my attention, and it was honestly one of the biggest swarms I have ever seen. If you could get closer or not.
Okay.
So you filming?
Yeah.
All right, so swarm was up in the tree, too high to get on the ladder. I had to cut him down. Put a strap around this. Okay, so here was the first problem and where I encountered mistake number one. You can see that I've got my BVAC that I created in a previous video. Maybe you saw on the tailgate of my truck I had a pole saw and I had a ladder out because the swarm was so high up in the tree that there was just no possible way that I was going to reach them on top of a ladder. Even with the BVAC strapped to my back up a ladder, just no way. So my intention was to get the pole saw and to cut the limb just enough to where the limb would crack and hang lower so that I could reach the bees on top of the ladder. But here's where I made mistake number one. I should have had a tarp, because as it was, the limb cut all the way through. I didn't intend to cut it all the way through, but it cut all the way through, and so I had all these bees. The limb just fell right on the ground right before dark. I had a ton of bees on the ground right before dark. I had not prepared for that. So there's lesson number one. Always have a tarp if you're planning on cutting a limb out of a tree, so that if the bees fall, they fall onto a tarp. It makes it much easier to collect them. So now you see me working feverishly to try to vacuum up the bees off of the ground where they fell. And the problem I had was that dark was approaching, and it approached way too fast. So I'm going to show you a little video up in the corner here of the right way to do it. I'm going to leave a link below for these ladies who did their nighttime bee rescue. They did a much better job at collecting them off the ground than I did with my BVAC. I left a lot of bees behind, which I didn't want to do. Again, that could have been prevented with a tarp. But the other thing is, after dark, these ladies taught me that you can lay the frames right on the bees, and they'll crawl right up onto the frames. I didn't realize that bees were such prolific crawlers after dark. Here I cut the main cluster off of the branch, which I'm pretty sure had the queen in it because they were all still fairly well clustered. And I was shaking them into a box, which would hopefully be their new home. But that was mistake number three, was that I was so unprepared. I didn't bring any old frames. That was a box with brand new frames with comb that had never been drawn, just the frames with the plastic coat. I think they would have stuck around or had a better chance of sticking around had I had some old bee frames in there. So if you've got old frames with drawn wax, that's another tip. Use old frames, don't use brand new bee frames. Okay, so the bees are gone. They were right about there on the ground, so they've obviously all got up. You can still see a few strays kind of crawling around on the ground, but the bees are pretty much gone from where they were last night. There's a few buzzing around in the air that you can still see. I'm hoping that the majority of them made their way back up to the apiary and got in that box that I installed them in last night. I'm just going to go real quick and we're going to look and see. It's this end box here. Let's see if there's any activity, and hopefully the swarm stayed. Well, there is some activity, and I mean a lot of activity in and out of this box, this end box. This is where I installed that swarm last night, and I'm going to guess that the majority of those bees picked up the scent of their queen and got in that box. I'm pretty sure I got the queen, so it remains to be seen whether this swarm will stay or not. You know, they're a little bit transitory, but as you can see from my other hives, that's a new hive. That's my Carniolans. They're still there bringing pollen in. This is the productive hive that, you know, if I thought it was a swarm of my own bees, I would have suspected this one, but they still got a ton of population, and there was really no reason for them to swarm. They've got plenty of room. I never observed any queen cells in there, so looks like everybody's doing really good, and I'm really happy to make this report, because going to bed last night, I just wasn't really sure what I was going to find first thing this morning. Of course, this is another new hive, so we'll see how they do as well. But anyway, kind of happy to make this report. Like I said, it looks like everybody's doing really good, and it for sure looks like those ones that I caught last night have definitely taken up residence in that hive. So, good report. Finally, tip number 4. The next morning I went to check on them, and of course there weren't very many bees left on the ground. There were still a few crawling around that you could see in the video. But they had made their way, the ones that were on the ground had made their way to the box, as you'll see in just a minute here, and there were a lot of bees. Again, as I said, this was a huge, huge swarm. And I think that mistake number 4 on my behalf was probably not using a bigger box. As many bees were in that swarm, I think I could have used 2 deep boxes, and it probably would have maybe given them some more room, because ultimately these bees did not stick around. Thanks for watching. Make sure to check out my other channel at Rumble, which is Bible Study with Derek. Here on YouTube, I offer tips and life hacks to try to help people. But on my other channel, Bible Study with Derek over at Rumble, I do a Bible study, which is what we all really need to help us get through this life. So make sure to check it out. I'll put the link below. If this video has been helpful, make sure to like it and help me out with the algorithm. And also make sure to subscribe and share any videos that have been helpful to you or a blessing to you. Thanks again for watching.